That night started like any other quiet Friday. My older brother Leo and I had the house to ourselves while our parents drove into the city for a dinner party. They promised they would be back by 11 p.m. And before leaving, they gave us the usual reminders. Lock the doors, don't open for strangers, and stay inside if the weather turned bad. Of course, we didn't listen to that last part. We were outside in the backyard, running around in the dark with a glass jar, trying to catch as many fireflies as we could. The air was warm, and everything felt calm and harmless. For a while, it was just us laughing, chasing little flickers of light in the grass. Then the rain started. At first, it was just a few drops, light, slow, barely noticeable. But within minutes, the sky opened completely. The rain came down hard, like a wall, soaking us instantly. We shouted and laughed as we ran back toward the house, slipping a little on the wet grass before bursting through the back door. We slammed it shut behind us and locked it without thinking much about it. Water dripped from our clothes onto the floor as we rushed into the living room. We grabbed towels, dried off as best as we could, and turned on the Xbox. Within minutes, we were completely distracted. The volume turned high enough to drown out the thunder outside. What we didn't know, or what we couldn't have known, was that while we were outside, someone had already gotten in. The basement window had been left slightly open earlier that day, and in that short of time, while we were distracted in the yard, someone had slipped inside the house without making a sound. Around 9:30 p.m., the power flickered. The screen went dark for a second before coming back on. I paused the game, annoyed at first, but then something else filled the silence. A sharp noise came from the kitchen. It sounded like something being moved, like plates shifting, maybe even dropped and caught before hitting the ground. Leo looked at me immediately, his face pale. "Is that the cat?" he whispered. "We don't have a cat," I said quietly. The realization settled heavily between us. I stood up slowly. My legs felt stiff, like they didn't want to move, but I forced myself toward the kitchen. The house felt different now, too quiet. The only light came from the moon outside, shining through rain-covered windows and casting long, distorted shadows across the floor. I reached the edge of the doorway and carefully looked inside. That's when I saw him. A man stood near the refrigerator. He was tall, his body hidden under a dirty yellow raincoat that glistened under the faint light. In one hand, he held a large canvas bag. His face was partly shadowed, but I could see his eyes clearly. He was already looking straight at me. He didn't speak. He didn't react with surprise. He just started moving toward me. Suddenly, something inside me snapped. I turned and ran. "Leo, run. There's someone in the house," I shouted, my voice breaking as panic took over. We didn't even think about the front door. By the time we reached the hallway, the man had already moved through the dining room, cutting us off. He was faster than we expected. We ran upstairs instead, our feet slipping on the wooden steps as we rushed to our bedroom. I slammed the door behind us and locked it just as something heavy crashed into the other side. The door shook violently. "Come out, boys," a rough voice called from the hallway. His tone was low, calm, and threatening. "I just want the keys to the safe. Make it easy and no one gets hurt." Leo and I screamed for help, yelling as loud as we could, but the storm outside was deafening. Rain hammered against the roof and windows so loudly that it swallowed our voices completely. No one would or can hear us. For a moment, everything went quiet. We looked at each other, holding our breath, hoping desperately, hoping that he had left. Then we heard footsteps. It was slow, heavy, coming back. A second later, the sound of wood splitting echoed through the room. I stared at the door as a sharp blade punched through it from the other side. Splinters flew inward. A jagged hole appeared in the center of the door, and through it, I saw something that made my stomach drop. I saw an axe. He had gone to the garage and found it. "One," he grunted from outside, pulling the axe back. He swung again. The hole grew larger, and now I could see part of his face. His eyes looked wild and focused, almost excited. "Two." He lifted the axe again, preparing for another strike. The wood around the lock was already cracking. It wouldn't take much longer. I felt completely helpless. There was nowhere left to run. Then suddenly, a loud car horn blasted outside. Bright headlights swept across the room, cutting through the darkness. Everything stopped. The man froze. For a second, no one moved. Then, without a word, he turned and ran. We heard his boots pounding down the stairs, followed by the sound of glass shattering somewhere in the kitchen. The backyard window. Seconds later, the front door opened downstairs. "Boys," our mother called out, her voice filled with confusion and concern. We didn't move at first. We stayed where we were, shaking, listening. Only when we heard our father's voice did we finally unlock the door. When we stepped out, the house didn't feel like home anymore. The kitchen window was completely shattered. Rain had soaked the floor. The axe was still lodged deep in our bedroom doorframe, buried there like it had been left behind on purpose. The police arrived later, but it didn't help much. The storm had washed away any footprints or evidence outside. No one could track where the man had gone. He was never found. After that night, things changed for us. Every time it rains now, Leo and I don't relax. We don't play games or turn up the volume. We sit quietly in the living room with all the lights on, watching every door and every window. Because we learned something that night. Rain doesn't just bring storms. Sometimes, it brings people who are waiting for the perfect moment to enter your life and never leave. And you know what I mean by that. I was 19 that year, working long, exhausting shifts at a warehouse on the edge of town. It was the kind of job that drained everything out of you. It drained your energy, your patience, even your sense of time. That night, my shift ended close to 10 p.m. As I stepped outside, the sky looked strange. A deep bruised shade of purple, like a storm was building something violent overhead. I started the long walk home, already tired, my body aching from lifting and moving boxes all day. About halfway through, the storm finally broke. But it wasn't normal rain. It came down all at once, heavy and relentless, like someone had turned the sky into a waterfall. Within seconds, I was soaked through. The rain hit so hard it blurred my vision and made it difficult to even see where I was going. I needed shelter fast. That's when I noticed the house set back from the road. It was an old two-story place with a wide balcony stretching across the front. The roof extended far enough to offer some protection. Without thinking too much, I ran across the wet lawn and climbed onto the porch, pressing myself against the front door as the wind pushed the rain sideways into me. At first, the balcony helped, but the wind kept shifting, and the rain found its way in anyway. My work shirt clung to my skin, cold and heavy. I could feel myself starting to shiver. I turned to look at the door behind me. It was solid oak, polished and clean. There were no lights visible inside, but something about the house didn't feel abandoned. It looked cared for, almost too clean for a place sitting in that kind of weather. I hesitated for a moment, then raised my hand and knocked. Once, twice, 3 times. "Hello," I called out, raising my voice over the sound of thunder. "I just need somewhere to stay dry for a bit." Still there was no answer. I knocked again, harder this time, repeating it several times until my knuckles stung. Still nothing, just the sound of rain and distant thunder. I sighed and leaned back against the wall, accepting that I'd probably just have to endure the cold until the storm eased. Then I heard it. I heard a soft click. The door slowly began to open on its own. I froze. For a second, I thought maybe someone had unlocked it from inside, but no one appeared. The door just swung inward, smooth and silent, revealing a dimly lit hallway beyond. I stood there for a moment, and sure. Then the cold wind hit me again, and instinct won over hesitation. "Hello," I said again as I stepped inside. The first thing I noticed was how clean everything was. The floor shined under my wet boots, and the air smelled strange. It was a mix of something expensive, like furniture polish, and something sweet, almost like flowers. But underneath it all was a metallic scent I couldn't quite place at first. I closed the door behind me halfway and sat down on a small bench near the entrance. I told myself I'd only stay for a few minutes, just long enough for the storm to calm down. The sound of rain pounding against the roof filled the silence. That's when I felt it. A drop of something warm landed on my thigh. I frowned and looked down. A small, dark red spot was spreading across my jeans. Confused, I touched it with my fingers, then slowly looked up at the ceiling. Another drop fell. This time it landed directly on my hand. I brought my hand closer to my face, and the smell hit me instantly. The smell was sharp, metallic, unmistakable. I know it was blood. My chest tightened as I stared at the ceiling. There was a thin crack running through the plaster. From that crack, a thick, dark red liquid was slowly seeping out. It gathered into drops before falling to the floor, forming a small, growing pool near my feet. Every instinct in my body screamed at me to leave because I know immediately that it's too dangerous to stay long here. I stood up quickly, my heart racing, and turned toward the door. As I moved, my shoulder accidentally bumped into a tall wooden cabinet standing against the wall. The door creaked open slightly from the impact. I should have ignored it, but I didn't. I glanced inside. The shelves were lined with knives, dozens of them. Kitchen knives, long hunting blades, serrated edges. They were arranged neatly, almost carefully. But what made my stomach drop was that every single one of them was wet with dark red liquid clung to the blades, slowly dripping from their tips onto the bottom shelf. They weren't old stains. They were fresh. I didn't think anymore after that. I moved straight for the door, but before I could reach it, it started closing. Slowly at first, then faster. The heavy wood swung inward as if something invisible was pulling it shut from the outside. Panic hit me hard. I lunged forward and threw my weight against the door. For a moment, it resisted. It felt like pushing against something alive, something that didn't want me to leave. I forced myself through the narrowing gap, scraping my arm against the edge as I stumbled back out onto the porch. The rain hit me instantly, cold and heavy, but I didn't care anymore. I ran. I ran across the lawn, through the street, through puddles that soaked my shoes completely. My lungs burned, my legs ached, but I didn't slow down. I didn't dare look back. I didn't stop until I reached my apartment. Once inside, I locked the door once, twice, 3 times, checking each lock over and over again until I was sure nothing could get in. I stayed awake the entire night. I never went back to that street. I never tried to find out who lived in that house or what was inside it. Some people I told said I was just exhausted, that maybe I imagined it all. But I know what I saw. I still have those jeans. The stain never came out. It's still there. It's dark, rusty, and permanent. A reminder that sometimes the worst place you can go for safety when raining is an unknown place you didn't know, and you meant to have a shelter till the rain stopped, and which can cause danger. It was a Tuesday night in late August, the kind of night where the sky doesn't just rain. The storm was relentless. Heavy sheets of water slammed against the roof of my small suburban house, so loud it almost drowned out my own thoughts. The wind howled through the trees, and every now and then the windows rattled as if something outside was trying to force its way in. Around 7 p.m., the lights flickered once, twice, and then everything went black. The power had gone out. For a moment, I just sat there in the darkness, listening to the storm take over the house, but I wasn't too worried at first. My phone was fully charged, and the glow from the screen gave me just enough light to see around me. I settled into my armchair in the living room, trying to ignore the noise outside as I scrolled through old photos to pass the time. That small glow felt comforting, like a tiny campfire in the middle of a very large, very dark space. Then I heard a tap. The sound was sharp and clear, completely different from the chaotic noise of the storm. It came from the large bay window to my left. I froze. My thumb hovered over my phone screen as I tried to convince myself it was nothing. Maybe a loose branch hitting the glass. Maybe debris carried by the wind. I held my breath, waiting for it to happen again. Tap, tap. I heard another 2 more knocks. It was slow and deliberate. That wasn't the wind. Someone or something was outside. I stood up slowly, my heart beginning to pound harder with each step. The wooden floor creaked beneath my feet as I approached the window. For a moment, I hesitated, staring at my own faint reflection in the dark glass. Then I reached forward and slid the window open just an inch. Cold air rushed in immediately, mixed with rain that sprayed across my face. The smell of wet earth and ozone filled my nose. "Hello," I called out. I received no answer, just only the storm. I leaned forward slightly, trying to see into the yard, but the rain was too heavy. It blurred everything into a shifting wall of darkness. There were no shapes, no movement, no sign that anyone had been there. I quickly shut the window and locked it, my hands shaking more than I wanted to admit. Something wasn't right. Trying to calm myself down, I stepped away from the window and headed toward the hallway. I figured I would just go to my bedroom, lie down, and wait for the storm to pass. But I didn't make it far when I heard a knock. This time, the sound came from the front door. I stopped dead in my tracks. The knocks were louder now. Firm, intentional. Whoever was out there had moved. I slowly walked toward the foyer, raising my phone to use its flashlight. The beam of light cut weakly through the darkness, barely illuminating the walls around me. My breathing felt too loud. I didn't want to open the door. Instead, I reached for the small tablet mounted on the wall. The screen connected to the front door camera. My fingers trembled as I tapped it on. The screen flickered to life, but all I saw was static. The rain was so heavy it distorted the image completely, turning it into a grainy mess of shifting gray and black. It was impossible to make out anything clearly. Then a deafening crack of thunder exploded overhead. The entire house shook, and for a split second, a flash of lightning lit up the front porch like daylight. And in that single moment, I saw him. A figure stood inches away from the door, perfectly still. He wasn't wearing a raincoat. He wasn't shielding his face from the storm. The rain poured over him, but he didn't react to it at all. His skin looked pale, gray, almost swollen, like something that had been sitting underwater for too long. And his eyes, they were wide open, unblinking and pure white. Then the light vanished, and everything dropped back into darkness. I stumbled backward, hitting the wall behind me as panic surged through my body. My chest tightened, and my breathing became sharp and uneven. Not long, a soft, wet and close voice seeped through the door like it was coming from the wood itself. "Let me in," it whispered. The words sounded wrong, thick, as if they were being pushed through water instead of air. "Please, let me in. I don't want to stay outside anymore." The voice paused for a second, then continued in the same quiet tone. "It's so cold, and the rain never stops." I didn't move. I couldn't. I slowly sank down to the floor of the hallway, clutching my phone tightly in my hand. My eyes were locked on the bottom edge of the door, expecting at any second to see fingers pushing through the gap, or shadows shifting beneath it. But nothing happened. No banging, no forced entry, just the whisper, over and over again, blending with the sound of the rain until I couldn't tell where one ended and the other began. I thought about calling the police. I thought about calling a neighbor, but something stopped me. A deep, irrational fear settled in my chest. It felt like if I made a sound, if I spoke, he would hear me, so I stayed silent, completely still, sitting on that cold hallway floor as the storm raged on outside. Hours passed like that. The whispers continued, sometimes fading, sometimes growing clearer again. My body grew stiff, but I didn't dare move. I just waited, and waited, until finally, the darkness began to fade. The first light of morning crept in through the windows, dull and gray, but enough to break the hold of the night. The whispers stopped, the rain softened, everything became quiet. I stayed there for a few more minutes before forcing myself to stand. My legs felt weak as I walked toward the door. Slowly, carefully, I checked the camera again. The porch was empty. There was no one there. No footprints, no movement, nothing at all. It was as if no one had ever been there in the first place. I should have felt relieved, but I didn't. Because when I finally opened the door to leave for work, I noticed something that made my stomach drop. Near the handle, on the outside of the wood, were faint gray smears, fingerprints, but not normal ones. They looked thick, muddy, like they had been pressed there with something that wasn't entirely solid, like wet silt dragged straight from the bottom of a river. I stared at them for a long time. Then I slowly closed the door again, because deep down, I knew something I couldn't explain. Whatever had been standing out there in the storm, it hadn't gone far. It was still out there somewhere, waiting. And the next time the rain comes down like that again, I don't know if I can survive that night.